Thanks to Charm Diamond Centers, the Canadian Love Map podcast has been sharing the stories that shape us for 10 seasons. Tales of romance, resilience, family, friendship, and community from every corner of Canada. This is Charm's Canadian Love Map. Marjorie Simmins, welcome to the Canadian Love Map.
I'm delighted to be here.
I'm not sure if I can contain this interview to the allotted time because I will tell you, I loved this book so much. I loved it from the first page. Sometimes when you read a book and you just started and you go, oh, here we go. This author can really write. And it was like you were pulling on my brain and my heart with every word from the beginning.
Wow, that's what every writer wants to hear. I'm delighted, obviously, that I got you from the first page, and I'm looking at your book now, which is well-thumbed indeed, and that, too, makes me happy.
Yes, exactly. I will tell you, I have an extra copy because I was beating this one up so much. It was looking less than perfect. I have a pristine one at home, which I'll probably give away because it's the perfect Christmas present.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I like to think it speaks to a lot of different people.
Yes, and so does love. And that's why you're here. This is a podcast about love. And I felt that there were so many love stories contained within the pages of this book and contained within the pages of your life. I really wanted to ask to see if you would share some of that magic with us. And here you are.
Well, again, delighted to be here and on such a show that celebrates love. I can't imagine my life without the loves that are in it. I feel like I've been blessed in many ways. And, of course, changes have come to my life, but the loves that have been steady all my life have stayed too. So you just lean into those a bit more when change comes along.
Mm-hmm. You've had what I've described as an epic love story. And while a lot of readers don't want to know the end first, we have to start with the end, I think. Can you share with us the conclusion of your beautiful love story? We're going to start at the hard part, Marjorie.
I guess so. I was all ready to start from long ago and work my way up. But in fact, the book itself, as you know, does unfold from the tough bits first and then on to other change. I was married for 22 years. I was together with John for 24 years. He was the one who enticed me here to the East Coast. I had never been further than Montreal, which, of course, is nowhere near the East Coast. And I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, except it was going to be the grandest life adventure I had had so far. And so Don and I wrote together, and we sailed together, and we traveled together, and we loved. And that was not supposed to end. But, of course, all stories do come to an end. And so in 2020, when the world was utterly mad and COVID had started, Don became sick, and then I lost him all within about the span of a month.
Brutal. When the world had stopped as well, and you were shut away from the world.
It couldn't have been a more peculiar sort of timing, I guess. My family is mostly out west. I have some family in Ontario, but the closest family, that would be my closest family, is in Ottawa. And I also have family in Calgary and BC. Nobody was going anywhere. So I lost Don, and a lot of his family, too, is across the country in Toronto, in Vancouver, on the prairies, and so on. I was completely by myself, completely. And these things are funny, you know, because you think, oh, isn't that terrible? At the same time, I thought it was a bit of a blessing in disguise. The change was so profound and so distressing. I didn't really want to have people around me. I had to sort of figure things out on my own, and I did have 2 dogs. And like most people during COVID, I had 2 people that we spent time together. They were my circle, or what do we call it? Bubble.
Yes.
Bubble, how soon we forget. So I did have a guy friend and a girlfriend who were close to me in the village there and so on. But, you know, I mean, Il Madame didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't bring me casseroles. They couldn't, come over and chat and just spend time. And, they were really, confused about the restrictions. Well, they weren't confused. They obeyed them.
And for those across the country who don't know Isle-Madame, it's not even a town, probably. It's a village.
It's a village.
Or a hamlet.
It's a beautiful village.
Yes.
On the north side of Isle-Madame, which is on the southeast side of Cape Breton. There's a causeway onto it, so it is a proper island. And, Discoos at one point, I think Don said there was 250 residents. So you can imagine me coming from Vancouver for the first time and, driving down that little road. And I did say to Don at one point, I said, tell me when to panic. And he said, you don't have to panic. And I said, yes, I do. So we rounded a hill, or came over a hill rather. And he said, here we are, Discoos. And I said, I'm panicking. But of course, I grew to love it very much. But so there it was in COVID, and Dawn was gone, and I had my 2 Shelties, and I had my 2 friends, and I had what I've always had in this life, and that's work. I know how to work. And I don't think this is explored very often, because we're always sort of, at this point in time, work is a bad thing too much. He's a workaholic, and she works too much, and she doesn't take time off, and she doesn't do this. I don't know if that's really true. I was on my own. There were so many things to do that if I actually sat down and stared at the list, I would have had a breakdown. But if I went to bed every night saying, I can do more, I can do more, I can do more, I could, and I did.
It was a lifeline of sorts.
It totally was. So I didn't have to think about how my life had changed. I just thought, okay, well, these are things that need to be done. The basic things that every person has to do when you lose somebody, you do those first. And then because at the time I thought, I really need to go home to my family, I need to go out west, I thought, well, the only way you're doing that is if you tidy up this lovely place and make it ready for sale. So that's what I put my energy into.
Marjorie, you were married to a guy who made headlines when he left the planet because he was a Canadian legend of sorts. He was a journalist, a writer. He was so many things, and he's left a legacy of film and books and his green interviews on YouTube, which are amazing, with many of the most incredible environmentalists. He's left that legacy. This book is his legacy. And he was called Silver Donald Cameron. I wonder if you could start by telling us why he was called that.
I sure can, and I'm so glad to hear the full name because we've both just been saying Don because we both knew him, of course. So yes, Silver Donald Cameron took that name when at one point in Cape Breton, he received a phone call from somebody. He picked it up and went, hello, and the person on the other end said, how are you doing, you old fart? And Don said, who are you? Who's calling, please? And he thought there was another Don Cameron that owned the A&W at the time. So whoever it was, I think it might have even been Billy Joel, the mayor that was there for so long. Anyway.
Billy Joe McLean.
Yes, I think it was. I truly think it was. And Don said, well, I think you've got the wrong Don there. And oh, terribly sorry, and hung up and all the rest of it. So Don was complaining about this to a friend of his Tom Gallant, who is a fine musician and writer and another Renaissance man, actually, a sailor and so on. And Tom said, well, what you need is a Cape Breton nickname. You absolutely do, And Don said, well, like what? And so Tom looked at him across the table and he said, well, you got that silver hair. And what about Silver Donald Cameron? Don went, bingo. So it's all Tom Gallant's idea, and well, it is genius, I should say. And it just, people loved it because the second Don Cameron from Vancouver became Silver Donald Cameron from Discoos, Isle-Madame, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. He really became a maritimer. Yes. He just 100% did. The first time I came out to Cape Breton to visit him, and he drove me up to the Highlands, and we rolled down a window to say hello to somebody who's walking along, and the fellow turned to him and said, morning, Silver Donald. And I went, holy Dinah, who doesn't know you? And he said, whoa, no, it's not like that, Marjorie. And I said, yes, it is like that.
And it was.
It was, and they loved him because he loved them. He was always fascinated by their lives, how they figured things out. He said the thing he really loved about Ile Madame, and I guess village life in particular, is that over the years, you're going to get into trouble. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to say, oh gosh, why did that ever happen? And you have to learn how to live among your neighbors after you've done something not so swift. They have to learn how to forgive you after something not so swift. So he was sort of fascinated with that really, I guess, the generosity of spirit. You know, I mean, you know, you're going to pass your first boyfriend all the time. You're going to pass, you know, your ex-husband. You're going to, you know, that teacher you were terribly rude to in grade 12, you know. You have to recreate yourself, get on with it, and have people realize that you're changed from whatever it is that might have occurred.
It's very different than New York City. It's a tiny little microcosm.
My gosh. It's even Halifax, you know, which
Yes.
of course is not the largest city going. But so he really, really, really loved Cape Breton, and he loved the music. He loved, you know, he sang with the Men of the Deeps at one point and traveled to China with them. And he loved the fishermen. That was actually what brought him to the area with the fishermen's strike back in 1970, I want to say, which resulted in the education of Everett Richardson, one of his best nonfiction books. He came to cover the strike in Canso.
As a journalist.
Yes, as a journalist. Thank you for that clarification. And yeah, he was a journalist. He was a journalist and an environmentalist all his life. He was out on the ice floes, you know, during the seal hunts of the 70s as well, with a great big camera and a honking big lens to zoom in on what was going on.
He was ahead of the curve like Elizabeth May, and I bet they were in cahoots back in the 70s.
Oh my gosh, he had huge respect and love for Elizabeth, as she did for him. And of course, Farley's in there too, you know. I mean, first time Don told me I was going to meet Farley Mowat, that's when I did faint. I said, I'm panic-stricken. I can't. And he said, of course you can. You'll love it. If you don't like Farley, you'll love Claire.
Oh my goodness.
So,
but he moved in this company, you know, because he was such a well-regarded and renowned writer and personality. He knew a lot of them. They were his friends. I'm sure that you moved in interesting circles often and met fascinating people because of both your talents and personalities. I know that in your books you have described Silver Donald in many ways, many times. But how would you do that now as a nugget for those listening? How would you describe Silver Dawn?
Oh, this is a difficult one. I mean, really, in some ways, he was a Renaissance man. He did almost everything well. He was a fine fiction writer. He was a fine nonfiction writer. He was a top-notch journalist. A filmmaker. He was an absolutely amazing filmmaker, and those films are his legacy. They're not only on YouTube for everyone to watch, but they're also with the National Archives of Canada, which is one of the other jobs I had to do. How would I describe Don? Always curious. He said, I can't believe that I get paid to ask questions. Like, really, could it be any better? Huge work ethic. A huge appetite for people and their expertises. He loved people that did things well. So, you know, he was as enthusiastic about boat builders as he was musicians, or, you know, the best of the carpenters with, so he didn't, you know, blue collar, white collar, didn't matter. And by the way, he was very modest. So he really, when Farley moved to the area, he was a little bit horrified because he thought, oh no, Toronto's coming. No, you know, not in my precious Cape Breton, you know. So he really was, I mean, he would have just shaken his head at the idea that writers were anybody better than anyone else. That was not the way he lived his life. But that said, he did attract really interesting people.
Tell me about the guy you fell in love with. How did that beginning of the romance go?
Yay, we get to the good part.
Yay.
Well, gosh, the chances of our getting together were 1 in a billion. They absolutely were. He may have grown up in Vancouver exactly 20 blocks apart from me. He grew up at 23rd and Dunbar, and I grew up at 43rd and Dunbar, 22 years apart. But he was in Cape Breton, and if he wasn't in Cape Breton, he was around the world or in Ontario and so on. He wasn't coming back to the West Coast much, but he was on a book tour. And both he and I had gone to UBC. That's where he got his BA in English Lit, and I did too, some many years later again. And so I was writing at the time, I was freelancing, and I was writing for the alumni magazine at UBC. And the editor there, who was a good friend of mine, he said, "Now, Marjorie, I got a great interview for you, just great. You're going to love this guy." Yes, we invited him to the wedding. But, what happened was that I interviewed him and we couldn't stop talking. And that was fun. And I just remember thinking, looking at him, and he was so pleasant and he was so kind and he was so attractive in many, many ways. And he was also attractive because of the way he spoke about his wife, because he was married.
And he was married at the time.
Absolutely married. And there was just such love and respect and warmth when he talked about his wife. And I thought, gosh darn it, if there's one, there's got to be two. There's just, it kind of gave me a little boost. I thought you needed that reminder that really lovely men are out there, because sometimes you have maybe not the best experiences.
Well, that's a great glass half full reaction, because some would say, oh, all the good ones are married.
Yeah,
I love that that's what you took from it.
That's very cool. I didn't think of that. It bolstered me. I thought, no, just keep looking, Marjorie. This is a sign from the heavens. If there's one, there's more, And so we said, lovely to meet you. Do keep in touch, And we did, in a kind of, I don't know, not very often way. Like, we were both members of PWAC, which is the Professional Writers Association of Canada. So we were keeping in touch on AGMs and so on. And then about 2 years later, he phoned me out of the blue. And as it turned out, he had lost his wife. So we started 8 months of conversation and emails, which just were so easy. They just flowed. Every morning I'd be racing to my computer to see what was on. Email was pretty new then. Remember all the grinding sounds as it made, as it downloaded and so on. So we just started talking, and there was, we phoned quite often and so on. And finally he said, "Well, that's it. I'm going to come out and visit you." And I said, "Well, I don't know."
Backpedal.
I was thinking, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to change my life. I've got horses here. I've got my family here. I've got 10 jobs, all of which I really enjoy. I've got all my old friends. I think this man's super, but I don't actually want to do anything beyond, talk.
And he was quite a bit older than you?
22 years.
Yeah.
And that was another reason, truly, that I thought, well, maybe not for me.
Give us the context of how old you were at the time.
Oh, yeah. I'd be, when we met, I was 35. And when we started going out, I was 37. Mm-hmm. And when we got married, I was 39.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. So you were in your 30s and he was in his 60s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, but do you talk to anybody that says my life has just unfolded exactly the way I thought it would?
Absolutely not. And I also love it when I encounter couples who demonstrate in such a powerful way that age really is just a construct. Because I know several in my life where there's a big age gap, and they're just the most wonderful partners. And you went on to, so you said, okay, I'm jumping in. Yes. So he asked, and then what did you say?
This was actually pretty funny because
I don't want to lead the witness.
I said, I don't know about that, Don. He said, well, you know what? I might just even, bring out a motorhome and just, park it in front of your townhouse there. And I'd put out a sign and it would say, "Marjorie won't go out with me. She's being mean." And I said, "You wouldn't do that." And he was silent. And I went, "You would, wouldn't you?" And at this point, my heart was just like pounding. I thought, oh, my God, my neighbors will be going, "What's going on around here?" Anyway, and I hear him chuckling, and I go, well, okay, we can have a visit. Let's see how that goes. And he goes, okay. So we did indeed have a visit. And it was very sweet of him to do it on my home turf, you know what I mean, to start out. And, of course, his brother there, his younger brother is there, and young guest, rather. And so he still had family there, too. And yeah, it was like, boy, I don't know, running downhill. You just weren't going to stop.
Which do you think you were most enticed by, his brain or his heart first?
Oh, that would be a dead heat.
Really?
Dead heat.
Really?
Dead heat. Yeah, I had that at that point. I had been a full-time writer for 5 years or so. I'd written all my life, but professionally, I'd been a writer for 5 years, and that was a huge draw. We could talk about stories and people and how you make it the most enticing thing to read, and he had heard me on radio. Actually, I forgot about that. Before I even met him, he had heard me on CBC Radio in Vancouver because my sister and I, my oldest sister and I, were up for a National Magazine Award. Zoe and I had written what they call companion pieces, 2 separate stories about a third sister of ours who passed away.
Oh, and he had heard you.
And he had heard me on the radio.
You.
And so when he made, good luck with the nomination. And I said, oh, thank you very much. And then he contacted me when Zoe and I won and said, congratulations, all the best. And it was just very kind, Mm-hmm. So he, we did in that period, but before we actually got together, I was sending him the writing. And it was so huge. It was just so huge to be able, I was sharing the writing with my dad too, who was a former journalist. Everybody in my family, I mean, it's a funny thing. In most families, say, oh, get a real job. In my family, it's like, oh, my God, she's freelance. How exciting. just like Dad, just like, Yes. Anyway, to share the writing was huge. So, everybody needs different things from partner. I really need a lot of intellectual heft, mm-hmm. And he certainly had that in spades. But the heart, warm as can be.
And you felt that from the beginning?
From the absolute beginning. Mm-hmm. He was, in In Search of Puffins, the book that we're talking about today, we'll talk about, is the third.
Book that we're not talking about right now.
We're getting there.
Yes,
we're getting
exactly.
there. Is the third in a series of 3. So the book that the memoir I wrote first when I came to Cape Breton to live with Don is Coastal Lives, and it covers a lot of the things that I've been talking about here. But sharing the writing was huge. I mean, even when I was writing that book, we're living together, we're married, and I'm saying, remember that part we did that? Should I put that in? Well, that's up to you, dear. I said, well, you won't be offended. No, I won't be offended. And he wouldn't be offended by anything because, art first. He would totally, or a laugh first. He would totally understand that. I actually said to my niece, if you want to talk about heart and mind, when I talked to my sister one day and my little niece was listening, and she said, Mom, she's going to marry that man. I know she is. And about a week later, I phoned back, and Zoe said, how are you doing? And I said, I don't know, my stomach kind of feels weird. I don't know what's going on. And then Zoe said something funny, and I started laughing. And I said, oh, my God, I've laughed so hard, I think I've split a gut or something. I think that's what it is. And she goes, oh, you do have to marry him.
I sprained my stomach laughing.
I did.
Isn't that...
And
wild.
That's a part of braininess too, is wanting those laughs and being witty. It's fun.
And of course, we're getting to the book, and I know you know that, but I just want to say that before we can talk about the loss, we need to talk about what you lost, who you lost, and just the spectacular human he was. You talk about the intellectual connection between the two of you. Then you went on to have what I would describe as a tremendously adventurous life. Not bookworms stuck inside writing and reading, but holy cow, you took the world by storm. Tell us about that.
100%. When I met Don, I said, listen, I've already had an adventurous life. I've done freelance stories. I got up to the Aleutian Islands. I got up to the North Pole with D&D. Because I was a commercial fishing. That was my specialty. And there was no women doing commercial fishing stories because I had, in fact, commercial fished. So I knew a little bit what I was doing. And I threw myself into that, and I loved it. So I'd already had a great, great life in terms of my work, my horses, just so much opportunity. I was very, very, very fortunate. But when I met Don, I said, holy Dinah, I didn't think anybody was going to up the ante this much. Off we go on a boat for 2 years. Now, I went fishing, okay, and I knew how to be, as I said to Don, I know how to keep my mouth shut on a boat, and that's about the most important thing anybody can learn.
All I know how to do is go down below and get beer for people. So when you say we went off on a boat for 2 years,
Oh my God, with
I'm
the
like,
dog.
okay, you're going to have to unpack that, please.
Well, Don had it in his mind for years that he wanted to do the Intercoastal Waterway down, all the way down, the eastern seaboard, and then into the Intercoastal Waterway, which leads all the way down to Florida, and then bingo over to the Bahamas. Well, I could barely find the Bahamas on the map. I was like, oh, I see, just over there from Florida. And Don goes, yeah, but it's a bit of a rough go. And I went, okay, good. So again, my best features on a boat is I know when to keep my mouth shut and I don't get seasick. So really, I am prime crew, and I cook.
How about getting scared? Like, you must have loved this guy.
Oh my God. Well, it was. Yes, there was a good friend of his once who said, how do you manage with Don's indomitable will? And I just cracked up laughing because I thought, it takes somebody who knows and loves him to actually use that word, because it was absolutely true. You simply couldn't say no, or good luck. It wasn't going to come to anything. So he wanted to do that. And he said, Marjorie, this was a trip I wanted to do in my 50s. My 50s have come and gone. So now I'm in my 60s. You're in your 40s. Off we go. And I said, of course, he put this in the book, right, to make it a bit of a joke that I did. I dragged my feet. I was going, the dog is old, we can't do this. How can we do offshore? The dog has to pee. And he goes, okay, we'll harbor hop. Okay, we'll harbor hop. But I'm really nervous. But oh my God, I would come up with one excuse after the other, right? And he's going, but you're the water girl. And I said, yeah, but not for 2 years. And he said, oh, you'll love it. And I said, listen, I tell you what, I know what I will love. And it turned out to be true. I said, the Bahamas sound delightful, amazing. They were. I said, but I know when I get to the southern U.S., I'm going to lose my mind, because it's just, the food, the culture, the music, and it was true. When we got to Savannah and we got to Charleston, and I just went, yeah, this is all. Or when we sailed through New York Harbor. Wow. Sailed through New York Harbor. He's at the wheel, and the current was wicked. It was frickin' scary. Oh, la, 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 la. We were going top of our hull speed through there, just like whooshing through. And I'm going, look, there's the Statue of Liberty. Saying, take a picture. I'm going, okay. So I take my picture of the Statue of Liberty, right? And I did get a really cute one of him. I think that went in Sailing Away from Winter, the book he wrote about it.
I can picture the Statue of Liberty blurred because you're going so fast.
Oh, yeah. And of course, I have, shall we say, a rather overactive imagination, right? And Don's going, we're going down the East River. And I'm going, that's where they put Jimmy Hoffa. I know. Going, oh, my God, keep going. I'm scared.
But by this point, you were really all in on the adventure, realizing this is the experience of a lifetime, no doubt.
Well, 100%. And frankly, where were you going to go? This is what
overboard.
Pretty much. Occasionally I'd get in a pout and go, on the bow. Like, what? What were you going to do, right? And people would say to us later, they'd go, wow, did you guys fight a lot? And Don said, well, did you fight with your wife in the last year? And the guy would go, yeah, numerous times. Well, we're just on a boat. Same thing. Yeah. You
just can't storm off.
You can't storm off. And you can't even slam a door. There's no door. But anyway. Yeah, no, it was absolutely amazing. And Don pushed me in a good way in a lot of circumstances. He pushed me with the writing, because I said, I don't know if I can write long, which was Margie's way of saying a book, because I had always been sort of queen of the essay and regular journalism, And I think I was a journalist for 5 years before I finally knew there was a title for it. I'm a narrative journalist. I just thought I just wrote stories, so I thought that was whatever. So he pushed me with the travel and with writing and just being sort of generally brave. Like, I never felt braver than when I was with him, or better yet, had him right by my side.
Well, he also pushed you to share your talents in another way, because you were doing workshops, writing workshops, and teaching the art of memoir, I think in particular. And I loved reading about this. And you had all these workbooks that, you had put together over the years for different workshops. And then he called you on it one day and said, Marjorie, step up.
Absolutely. I mean, he had good reason to call me on it because I would always ask him to come and help me put these booklets together because sometimes I have some spatial difficulties, so I have difficulty putting all these booklets together. And he goes, "You realize that this one is even fatter than the last time you gave a workshop?" And I go, I know, but I just had a few more things to say. And he goes, "This is called low-hanging fruit." Low-hanging fruit. You can write this book. I know you can write this book. This is going to be an awesome book. Every single time you do a workshop, you can say, "I have a book on memoir. Perhaps it might help you." And I went, "Yeah, no, you do. You have a point." So that, I mean, you want to talk about adventures. That wasn't just a how to write a personal narrative. I got to interview the most magnificent writers, Donna Morrissey, Lyndon McIntyre, Edwin Matachawaban, Plum Johnson.
So many great Canadian writers who have demonstrated their prowess in the art of memoir. And your conversation with Donna Morrissey was predictably hilarious.
Oh, my God, hilarious. I know. And Diane Chamberlain, who wrote This Is Not My Life, she was magnificent. She absolutely was. So was the book. And so
you were getting to share not just your ideas about memoir, but those of many great writers.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm just one understanding of a personal narrative. I have a particular style. That's all very nice. I love all sorts of different styles. Again, Diane Chamberlain and when Donna Morrissey did come out with her, because she was halfway through her memoir when I spoke to her, it's a beauty. Mm-hmm. It's a beauty. And when I saw the title, I actually screamed because she had mentioned there was going to be a couple of other titles, and I didn't, I sort of thought, oh, okay, whatever, you have to, go with your big publisher, and that's going to be it. And then when the final book came out, Pluck.
It's the best Newfoundland title ever. We love some good titles around here, don't we, Marjorie?
I know.
How about In Search of Puffins? Now you're steering me like that boat you were on with Dawn. This podcast is made possible by the support of Charm Diamond Centers. As a proudly Canadian-owned company, they care deeply about shining a light on love. Let's talk about In Search of Puffins.
Okay. Well,
why this title? And by the way, the subtitle is Stories of Loss, Light, and Flight.
I figured there had to be very much had to be a subtitle because otherwise all the ornithologists would be going, "Yes, baby, we're going to talk about puffins."
Let's go find some birds.
No. I'm not an ornithologist. In Search of Puffins, as I said earlier, is the third in a trio of memoirs written during my years with Dawn. So there was Coastal Lives, there was Year of the Horse, and then after I lost Dawn, there was In Search of Puffins. There very nearly was not In Search of Puffins because I felt like my writerly spirit had just gone on a very long vacation.
Like there was no wind in your sails, to use the metaphor from your sailing days.
Yeah, but why would I write if I couldn't read it to him?
Right. Whew, that's a punch right in the gut.
I just thought, what was the point? So that's part of the book itself. Is that almost an inside joke, as I keep saying, I'm not writing, and very obviously I am writing. But a memoir needs. It needs some magic, and it needs to sort of touch base with themes that go throughout the book and are of universal interest. So, In Search of Puffins, I wrote to honor Dawn. That was, definitely reason number one, to honor him and to record our time together because I felt there had been a book about me coming to the Maritimes and expressing all my delight and interest in this different world. There had been a book about one of the, one of the most difficult times in my life. I had had a very bad accident, and I came back to writing after that accident. So that was sort of the middle period of my life.
In fact, you almost didn't walk again. They thought you might not walk again.
Well, if you want some indication of what kind of man Don was, he, carried me to the bathroom for weeks. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even turn over in bed. And of greater interest, when I said to him, I'm going back riding, a lot of men might have said, really? Mm-hmm. Are we going to think about this just a little bit? And he said, okay, do you want to go to the barn? And I said, yes, I do. So
it sounds like you were each other's greatest supporters and greatest fans.
100%. 100%. I always used to say Don's writing was very athletic in an absolutely wonderful, wonderful way, the same way Harry Bruce had a very athletic and then graceful style too. There's few stylists nowadays somewhere you can read a sentence or two or perhaps a paragraph and go, oh, well, 100%, that's Silver Donald Cameron. 100%, that's, one would hope, me.
It's like Ernest Hemingway, right?
Well, I guess it's short. Yeah, the short sentences we all came to love, and and the sort of low key. So Don was a stylist, and his prose, we used to say, was like a fingernail on crystal. It was so clear, it was so beautiful. But when he wanted to be really athletic, he could be that too. His greatest gift as a writer, I do believe, was taking masses of really complicated, dead dull stuff and making it fascinating. And he did that with books like The Living Beach and others. He did that with all his green interviews. These are people from all over the world that are doing fascinating, wonderful, brave things for the environment. But sometimes they might, be, I don't know, out of the experience of the average person, and so he would just interview them to get right down to the basics. Tell me how this works. Tell me how that works. He was all about clarity. He was all about clarity and heart and giving a damn about everything. We did act as cheerleaders for one another. And also, when you have that kind of, I swear to heavens, it took me about 15 years before I said to him, you really do love my writing, don't you? And he went, yeah. I said, so like it wasn't just to, have your way with me.
This is legit respect.
Legit respect,
Oh, that's great.
But it was just hard to really fathom a writer of that stature enjoying my writing the way he did. I mean, God bless him. So yeah, when your audience is gone, your number one audience is gone, it just took the pen and flung it out in the back 40. I just wasn't sure.
So he was your number one audience. He was your lover, your husband, your co-conspirator, co-adventurer. What do the Puffins represent?
Right. The Puffins I may have seen over the years when we were sailing, but they're so small.
How small are they?
Oh, they're about 4 inches.
Oh.
They're really not very big.
So some people might mistake them for a penguin because they're black and white, but
oh no,
you wouldn't recognize the penguin in their body at all.
And are you ready for this? A baby puffin is called a pufflet.
A pufflet.
I know. I think I've got puffin facts in the books. But
have you always been fascinated by puffins?
I love them. They're just, they're known as the clowns of the sea. They have actual senses of humor, which means they have actual senses of intelligence, big time. They're adorable. They spend 7 months of their lives at sea. The rest of the time is on land in their little burrows making babies. They mate for life.
Okay, you have to stop right now because we're going to lose our whole audience. They're all going to tune out and go over and search puffins. Okay, please, everyone, if you do that, come back. Come back to hear the end of this conversation and why the book is called In Search of Puffins.
It's called In Search of Puffins because I went in search of puffins because unlike what Don had said to me, you've seen puffins before. I said, I haven't seen puffins and I want to see them with you. And then, of course, I lost him. So, losing people is a lot about the things that you didn't get to do. I mean, if you are intelligent, you look up at all the things you did do and you feel a huge amount of gratitude. Mm-hmm. That said, there's still going to be the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever it is because life goes on and you wish they were with you to do whatever it is that you're doing that's exciting or unique or whatever else, memorable. So I got it into my mind. I thought, okay, Silver Donald Cameron, I did not see puffins with you, or if I did, they were specks in the sky. I really want to see them, and I want to see them close up. And so I took myself up to Cape Breton and went to Englishtown, and there is a puffin company there, which a lot of people know. And we went out, me and about 12 other people, and I took my dog Frankie with me at the time, my little Sheltie girl.
Okay, this is so great. I know there are a lot of whale watching companies. I did not know until I read this book that there were puffin spotting companies.
100%. And you don't necessarily, there's boats that you can go out on, and then there's various places in Newfoundland and Ireland and Iceland and the UK, I suppose, South Shore, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, again with boats. So there's lots of ways to see them. But the boats were pretty awesome. We came up super close. The water was very bold to the rocks. So we came in super close, and you could just, quick, on the left-hand side, and there are puffins, and all these heads would turn. There's the puffins, madly taking photos and so on. And they were just as adorable as I expected they would be. And so I had a wee conversation with Don while all this was going on and saying, you should be here. Well, you're not, but I am. And can you see them? Oh, yeah, he said, I can see them. Aren't they great? We did talk to each other after he left. We absolutely did, because I would have gone mad,
And I love the way you put it, because you don't say you talk to him, but you talk to each other. And how long did it take before, after his death, how long did it take before you felt a sense of communication with him again?
Oh, yeah, right away. It was, you just get that huge wall of shock and pain and dysfunction. It took a little while. He started playing jokes on me.
Oh, that does not surprise me.
We had, I put this in the book. When you buy those silly things that go on a toilet seat, the fuzzy things that go on so you don't bang it when you push it backward. Well, we'd kept the cardboard that keeps the shape of that, and we hid it on one another. It's just like it was all like a round piece of cardboard, right? And we would hide it, and sometimes it would be gone for like months. And I would, be vacuuming a couch and pulling out the cushions and vacuuming. I go, you bastard! Because he put it underneath the couch. Right?
You made your own fun, clearly.
We totally did. But we forgot about it for like months and months and months at a time. And then you'd hear somebody shriek, oh my God, I found it. Right? And, honestly, when he died, I thought, now who am I going to play the game with? Yes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I mean, no one else ever again in my life, of course. But it was just like one of those silly things that you do with people. Anyway, so that's just one of the things you miss, isn't it?
I love the symbolism of searching for puffins, because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about how you don't just lose your partner in crime or your person that you love, but you also lose all those experiences that you might have done together.
Yes.
And now you have to do on your own. And it's true for so many people, particularly partners of spouses who have left. Yes. And unexpectedly, obviously, most of the time, it's easy to think I can't go on. Mm-hmm. And this book is so much about you convincing yourself that you can go on. And another love story contained within the pages is this love between you and your friends. And I think this is a universal experience. So many people who have experienced loss find consolation, support, and love from their friends is so, it's pivotal in helping them move on with their life.
100%. And I was very blessed that the particular friends who could support me at that time with COVID going on and being based in Cape Breton and so on were friends who adored Don. So that just made it so much easier. We would laugh about things that he knew he would laugh about, or we'd roll our eyeballs and go, oh, Don wouldn't be on for that one, or whatever it might be, So just knowing these people knew him almost as well as I did was just, it was like a comfort. Almost like a blanket or something. It was just lovely.
And it made it possible to keep mentioning his name.
Yes.
To keep his spirit with you as well.
Dawn stories. Yeah, we shared Dawn stories, and that was fun too. But again, I mentioned way up in our talk that working together, it's often something men do. They'll meet up in the shop, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And they get to the personal talk or not. as they're working. But it's a very guy-sanctioned thing to do. And women not quite as much. We might get together, but Muriel and I is the point. We got together to work because my friend Muriel is one of the most astonishing human beings ever. I can't be around her 2 minutes without learning something. She knows how to do everything. And when she teaches you, it's never patronizing. She'll just say, "Oh, can I show you something that's this works so well? Just give it a whirl." Instead of, "Oh no, don't do it like that. That'll take you forever." No. Every time she does it is positive, and I never have to worry that she doesn't know how to do something. She just does, and just immensely capable, and works like a son of a gun too. So that's what we did. When I was working, I did quite a bit of my own, and then when I phoned up, that's chapter 3 or something. I need help. Mm-hmm. Right? And Muriel, of course, I hasten to add. I mean, you saw my acknowledgments, right? Holy moly. I love acknowledgments. I always read them. And there were more people than I could even... I know for sure I left one person out and I cringe, but I tried so hard to remember all the nice things that were done for me.
Well, I think Silver Dawn said to you, "Let people help you," or "people will help you," and because of the chapter of time when he left during the pandemic. What is it about Muriel that allowed her to help pull you through that dark tunnel of grief?
Well, she's just one of the most generous and accepting and kind people I know. So if you ask her by saying, "I need help," she'll say, "Yeah, okay, Tuesday," or whatever, She's very down to earth, unflappable. Which is a glorious thing to have around you when you're not really 100% yourself, Mm-hmm. Just one of those people that knows how to do things, And so I felt like we were a couple of fellas sometimes sitting there, she'd be having her cigarette. And I'd be like wafting it down because after 20 years, it still doesn't smell too bad to me sometimes, right? We're having our coffee and go, "Yeah, okay, we'll do this first day and we'll do that next. And yeah, by the end of the day, we should have her scald. Yeah, okay, good, let's go." We'd talk about personal things as we were working, mm-hmm. But mostly we worked.
Yeah.
It was great because, you felt like I was ticking things off. I'm a list maker, right? All these things are getting ticked off the list. I'm like,
Well, you left the home, the historic home that you'd lived in Cape Breton, and you headed for the mainland and reestablished your own space, which I know that, it's a beautiful way you talk about it because it can be funny, it can be moving, it can be all sorts of things. I really enjoyed hearing about that part of your journey partly because I'm fascinated by grief. Mm-hmm. It's something, I had a friend who died several years ago who always said people need to believe and understand that we should celebrate the last breath in the same way we celebrate the first breath. Mm. And we should stop holding so much stigma around death and really celebrate the people when they leave. And leaving is her way of putting it. I know that another love that got you through this journey so far were animals and not just puffins.
Absolutely. I have been blessed to have dogs in my life since I was 30. So this is kind of a wonderful story I'll tell about the Shelties. Don absolutely adored our Shelties. He adored our Whippet, too, who we took, a Whippet. Can you imagine on a sailboat? Anyway, God bless Leo. He was not running on the sailboat, I'll tell you. At any rate, when Don died, I had the 2 Shelties, McTavish the boy and Frankie the girl. And Frankie, how do I put it? Frankie's very subtle in her expressions of affection. If you get one, you feel very special. But she doesn't like to sleep with icky humans. That's just above and beyond. She doesn't like doing that. So she always had her own little bed at the end of the bed. And McTavish, au contraire, was like Mr. Snuggleboy. So when Dawn left, McTavish did as he always did and came up on the left-hand side of the bed and curled into me. And I thought it wasn't that nice, that he does this. Frankie came up on the right-hand side. And she stayed sleeping on my right-hand side for a year. A year.
They made a Marjorie sandwich.
They did.
Pretty sweet.
They did. And that was not Frankie's way. I mean, she literally looked at me a year in and she goes, okay, like, I think you're better. And I went, yeah, I'm better. Thank you. Okay, good, because, yeah, okay. that was, so I've just been incredibly blessed with these dogs. Just so special, smart, funny, kind, loving, fun, up for games, up for adventures, lovely. But horses have always been a part of my life too, hugely. Mm-hmm. And different horse worlds have been a part of my life, which makes me feel just so lucky, just so fortunate. And when I moved to Truro, guess what? They have a racetrack there. And it's a harness racing track, which would have been new to me had I not simply just written a book about the fastest harness racer in the world, who is some beach somewhere. That was my fourth book.
Wow.
And so I had been to Truro. I had been to the track. Unfortunately, I hadn't met Beach, but I did the next best thing. I met one of his sons who looked apparently just like him. So, yeah, that was a whole new horse world for me. Usually I'm on top of a horse. That's the world that I know best. But being behind a horse in a cart going thum, 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 thum,
So
down.
you actually did the harness racing?
I did. I got to. Well, it's if you've got somebody there who's helping you, you can't get into too much trouble. That said, I was scared witless, which is always a good place to be because you learn. And it was so much fun. It was just totally fun. They're a lovely breed. They're very smart. They're very stoic in an odd way. Which serves them and doesn't serve them because people think they're not as reactive as other horses. They're very stoic, but they're lovely.
What was it about the horses that helped to resuscitate you in a way? Was it the connection? Was it their energy? What do you think was the magic?
Once again, we're coming back to it's a movement. So even if you're not on top of the horse, you're grooming. So you're up, down, picking up hooves. Grooming is actually quite a physical endeavor if you do it properly. And so you're warming yourself up. You're literally warming yourself, as you're working. But your hands are on flesh and blood. I mean, it's a real connection. You can feel that skin ripple when a fly lands on it or something. And it gets you out of your brain. You're in a lovely physical place of smell, of what things feel like, all the lovely warm coats and the barns smell like hay and straw and good things and leather and people are laughing and being silly and shoveling stalls, which is another wonderful, wonderful thing to do. I know it sounds strange, but it is. So
mucking out the stalls. Oh, I miss it still. I did it a lot as a kid.
Yay! You know what I mean then.
Shoveling.
Yes. Well, it's the before and after, isn't it?
Yes.
You go in and you go, oh, this looks really bad, smells worse. And then, 10, 15 minutes later, you go, perfection.
Yes. Almost like ironing.
Or laundry.
The
before, after.
That's right. There's a sense of satisfaction.
Yep. And also care. You're caring for an animal, so it's a good feeling. So it's very physical. It is, of course, spiritual because you are one spirit to another. And it's just sort of it's a learning environment again. Marjorie loves to learn. If you want to make her happy or get her out of her own head and make her learn, So at the track in Truro, I was always learning. They let me. They were so sweet. They were kind enough to teach me how to put all the harness on, which is way more complicated than it looks. And especially since most of the horses are ginormous and I am not terribly tall. So you're learning, you're physical, it's spiritual, and you go home and you kind of smell your hand and it's all horsey and you go, it's just a good thing. And my mom used to talk about an honest fatigue. It's an honest fatigue. Your back's a little sore, your feet are a little sore, cold or whatever. You feel good.
But I also, in what you describe, hear you talking about a place of presence, real presence, where you can't be in rumination, where you've really just got to be doing what you're doing and in the moment.
100%. That is probably the best feature. You know, because there's always something always going on. You know, you're in a state of cold, so you're trying to get warmer. You're in a state of warm, so you're trying to peel off a layer. You're looking for something. You're watching somebody do something quite astonishing. You know, that they're using tack and harness. You've never seen it. You're looking at the bit. You're going, what the hey is that? You're 100% in the moment.
Do you love your book for what it gave you?
I love that I was able to write it.
I mean, you're giving, obviously, to the people who read it, but I also want to talk about what it gave you.
Thank you. It gave me confidence that I can still write. You know, a writer, a painter, a potter, an actor, every time they come out with a new work is always hoping that they have improved from the last one, you know. So I do feel that I'm keeping up that trend, you know. And one thing that you and I haven't talked about that I would like to mention before I forget again is, and this affects me too, is I'm always fascinated in reinvention. I really, really, really am interested in that. I don't know why, but at a very young age, I became aware of people either behaving wisely or not. And by that I mean, you know, sometimes when somebody was getting older, Dawn had an aunt in BC who we all adored, and she kept downsizing, and I always thought she did it before she had to, and I found it a little alarming because I thought, well, she doesn't, you know, she's not infirm, she doesn't need to downsize. She was really, really smart. She was doing it before emergency came along, before crisis came along, before ill health came along. She just, I can do it now, I will do it now. I can do it now, I'll do it now. And so I took notes. And I've done that with a lot of other people in my life when I see them make a change and I think, wow, why are they doing that? Oh, I see. So, you know, this whole book, In Search of Puffins, is about reinvention, because if you're reinventing yourself after love of a life, and, you know, leaving Cape Breton was a little bit like chewing off my arm. I mean, it was very difficult in some ways. In other ways, it was absolutely 100% the right thing to do. I was actually trying to get west, as I mentioned some time ago, because of my family.
You were thinking about going back to BC, but you only got as far as Truro.
I know, funny, eh?
I think that's great.
Sorry, you got another umpteen thousand clicks to go. But Truro's been genius.
You have a love story with Truro, too?
I do. I 100% do. You know, it was the one place, honest to heavens, pretty much in the entire province, that I hadn't spent a lot of time with Don. And that was very deliberate. I did not want to see him coming around a corner. I did not want him saying, oh, there's the park where we have that nice picnic. I didn't want it to have any of that. I wanted it to be a fresh, clean start as much. I mean, I carry him with me every day. So, you know, that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. But Truro was an unknown in some ways. We have two very, very good friends there, and they were the ones that are in the book. More lovely, lovely friends pulling off miracles for me. I don't know what I did in another lifetime, but boy, I'm a lucky woman. But Truro's it's been a ball. Have you seen the library? How nice it is.
I've got to get there because I read about it.
I know, and we have good shopping, and
it's a wonderful little town.
It is. They need more international food, but we're starting to get some really fine South Asian food, so that's exciting. But yeah, no, it's a great place.
So this book really, you know, tells the story of your journey back to yourself in a way, and wholeness maybe is the way to say it. But I wonder if it also helped you get there. How much did writing the book help you in your grief process?
Yeah, you know, this is an excellent question. This is something that comes up often when I teach, and I teach a lot. I teach all over. It's a great privilege and joy to do. And, you know, people always look to me, they say, well, you know, I'm going to be writing about this, that, and the other, and I'm really sure it's going to be cathartic. And I feel like, you know, it's like telling a kid there's no such thing as Santa. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm sure it'll be cathartic. Yeah, absolutely. That word gets used too much anyway. And it may be, but if that's your primary reason to do it, I don't think it's enough. right?
I agree.
wanted.
But was it a
I felt satisfaction.
a side effect?
I felt huge satisfaction. Well, remember, time had gone by
Yes.
too. So by the time the book was actually out, I had. I had 3 years in Truro, and I had 5 years without Dawn. So I found, and of course everybody's different, I found year 1, no difference whatsoever. No difference whatsoever. Year 2, hardly any difference whatsoever. Year 3, huge difference. Huge difference.
What do you mean by no difference at all? Just explain.
Oh,
that.
just that horrible, 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 heavy feeling on your chest.
Right. No progress.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
thinking, oh, okay, and you tell yourself, well, it won't always be like this. It won't always be like this. But meanwhile, you're almost panicking because you're thinking, if it is, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I didn't notice any lightening of my grief in 2 years. In year 3, I went, oh, and that might have been, let's see, yeah, I guess that was my first. No. Anyway, things were going on. Horses were coming into my life. Friends were around. Family was in good shape. Just good life things were going on. I was teaching, and there is nothing like seeing what other people are dealing with to make you feel like you're the luckiest person on the planet, which I have always known I am. So, yeah.
Perspective.
Yeah.
I know that you obviously love writing, and I am guessing you love teaching because you've taught a lot of people about writing. What is the thing about it for you that you love the most?
I have never not written. So, yes, it's something I love, but it's also how I make sense of the world. I literally cannot make sense of the world unless I've, squirreled myself away and written about it. Because, you're going to get a surprise. You go, you're writing, and you go, oh, I didn't realize there was anger underneath there. Oh, how interesting. And so it's a constant, revelation, I guess. But I've never not written. If it wasn't letters, it was journals. If it wasn't journals, it was freelance journalism. If it wasn't that, it was all the other things. So I've never known how, you see... You see a writer out in the actual world, and all of a sudden they're running back to their house because they have to figure something out, with their words. And it's just the way I do the world.
Was it the author Anne Lamott who said, "I don't know what I think until I write it down"?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that's the correct attribution.
Yes, I think it is actually. Good for you. But it's and I always hope I'm wrong. I always hope that, any student that comes to me with a big story, and I'll tell you, sweet heavens to Murgatroyd, we don't talk about the weather. The stories that they come onto my attention or something else. So I hope they're cathartic. I hope they at the very least feel pride and satisfaction and all those good things that I would hope to come for them. But, in terms of the other biggies, I think maybe getting counseling is almost as important. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Actually, I won't say almost, is as important.
Absolutely.
Being
willing to look at your emotions and fully feel them. Mm-hmm. Is that what you mean?
Well,
with help,
understanding that the particular circumstances of your life have had particular effects, and you might not be aware of that. The post-traumatic stress disorder that is more common than we thought years ago, not just on the battlefield, but in the battlefields of homes too. Mm-hmm.
And the work around trauma that Gabor Mate is doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, again, memoirs, the stories that people bring to me, boy, you get to a certain age and you think, well, maybe I've sort of seen, heard it all. Oh no. And it's not a depressing thing. It's, in fact, it kind of uplifts me because I think, wow, the things people not just get through, because you get a T-shirt for that for sure, but get through well. Get through with the heart intact. Get through with a generous spirit. Get through by giving back.
You just described your contribution with this book with those words.
Thank you.
Really? Just, inspiring. It's beautiful to read. You've given us all a gift in this book. I really mean it. And the one thing we need to finish off with is you were telling us about your communication from Silver Dawn. So give us a tidbit there before we leave. What would he say? What does he say about this book?
He's delighted. He's delighted. He's more delighted for me than for him, which would be typical. When he, I know this sounds a little odd, but I mean, other people I know who lose people they're very close to feel as though they can speak to them. Don just continues to uplift me. He absolutely does. When I think of what he did in the years I knew him, which was basically age 60 to 83, when I think of what he did in those years, it defies understanding. The number of books that he did, the number of films he did, the number of interviews he did. He was bouncing in the back of Jeeps in South America down, country roads that would have had my hair standing on end in his 80s. He had absolutely no interest in getting older and no interest in dying, like just none, boom, zip. I know that's kind of funny. Nobody does. But, honest to God, when he left, he had 4 pots on the stove all on boil, which was one of the challenges for me. Right, because I had to make sure all the pots were off, or on a simmer, or whatever it was. He was just
and by pots you mean projects.
I mean projects.
Yeah.
The number of people I had to phone and say, "I'm sorry, that's not going to go through," or do. So living life to the absolute edge of it. Now we didn't know he was going to have a quick, goodbye, but you never do. Mm-hmm. So the time is always now to do exactly what you need to do to make a difference in your life.
Okay. Well, we can't get better than that. So we are going to wrap this conversation up. I want to say thank you so, so much for writing the book, for sharing it with us, and for speaking with me today. And now is the time for us all to look up puffins on the internet.
Off you go. Have fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marjorie.
Okay.
Thanks to Charm Diamond Centers, the Canadian Love Map podcast has been sharing the stories that shape us for 10 seasons. Tales of romance, resilience, family, friendship, and community from every corner of Canada. This is Charm's Canadian Love Map.